Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. It is 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, and you are here on Dividing Truth with the MAG7. And so we are so excited to be here. We're here on our new time. We're going to ask you to make sure that if you're watching on the Facebook page, Radio ND Facebook page, make sure that you share the broadcast. If you're listening on the app, text somebody and have them join in and listen with you. We're excited. Last week we had a little bit of technical difficulty. We weren't really able to hear our feature co-host for the day. And so we are delighted that she was able to come back this week because we really want you to hear her story. So, we've been on for just a few weeks now, and we are using these first few weeks through story so that you all can know us as the MAG7. And then after that, we'll do some different things with the show. So we thank you for tuning in. You're listening to Radio Indie and 7 dynamic women who've overcome unthinkable odds on the journey to success, share some invaluable experiences in entrepreneurship and business ownership. And as we like to say, pure unadulterated answers for today's business owner. So again, this week we have the pleasure of listening to Danita Scott's story. She's going to be sharing how the death of her father impacted her. And our topic today again is whose vision is it anyway, right? Whose vision is it anyway? From existing to living. So my name is Lexi Jones. I am an international speaker, business coach, and profit strategist. And I'll have Danita introduce herself.
So my name is Danita A. Scott. I'm originally from sunny San Diego, California, and I specialize in helping faith-based entrepreneurs execute their brilliance. I have a training and development company where I show people how to go from concept to reality for developing online courses. And I also have an accountability group where I show people how to stay focused on the vision.
Awesome. So Danita's up to some amazing things, and we're going to talk about some of these things as we go through her story today. So once again, share this out, invite someone to listen. So Danita, I'm just going to let you start where you think you need to start with your story.
Okay, great. Well, I don't know. I feel like I'm like Will Smith in West Philadelphia. I wasn't born and raised there, so that's not what I'm talking about. I definitely did spend my days on the playground, but none of that story is relevant. So I actually am going to start probably maybe midlife. So in my early life, my dad was in the military, so we lived a bunch of places. And once I became an adult, I moved to Atlanta and I started working, and I took my very first job. I remember it was like $22,500 a year in Atlanta, Georgia. And this was in 2000. And so even back in that day, that was no money.
Oh my goodness.
And from that point until I was probably like in my mid 30s, I always had jobs that were good and there was nothing wrong with it. I even later on made a lot more money, but of course, more than $22,500. But I always felt unfulfilled in some way. When I was very, very young, I remember going to a youth convention for my church, and there was a speaker at the convention, and his last name was Scott, and he was very powerful. And I remember God telling me, like, I really had not even really heard the voice of God at that point, but I remember just whispering, like, oh, that's what you're gonna do. And I was like, I don't even like to sell my own Girl Scout cookies. Are you kidding me? I'm not gonna talk to nobody. So I always felt a call to speak and to do speaking, but I was intimidated by that call. So in my late 20s, my late 20s, I started speaking and I really loved it, but I didn't know how to make that a job. I was like, you're going to pay me to talk to you? Yes. And then as
people get paid for that? What? We get paid to say some words?
Get paid to talk, like, sign me up. But in my mid 30s, I found myself in a personal crisis. I had been in a long relationship that didn't work out like I thought it was going to work out. And then I started to see my father get very sick. And so those two situations made me really question, what was I doing with my life? What did I want to do? how did I want to do it? And was I even going to be satisfied if my life kept going in that direction? So that's kind of where the start of purpose for me started. You know, some people know like super early what their divine plan is. And I was just doing everything. I was selling cars. I was doing outside sales. I was selling telephone lines. I was selling makeup. I was just hustling a whole bunch of stuff, just working, just doing a whole bunch of random stuff. So yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. I can relate, in a couple of areas. So, you talked about, someone speaking to you and telling you, hey, they can see you doing this and, having that reaction like, "Pah, whatever," right? So I can definitely relate to that. Getting that first notion or that first indication, and not really thinking about it again. Or did you think about it from time to time after the gentleman told you, yeah, this is what you're going to be doing, or you should consider this?
So I did think about it often because it would come out at random times. Like I would be like in a place and they'd be like, "Oh, say this poem," and I'd speak it and it would be totally different. Everybody's like, "Blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Da da da da," and it just would come out, and I'm like, I would try to control that, but I didn't know how to. And so because it would just appear, it was kind of like I kind of always had reminders, but maybe about 6 years ago, I went to an NSA meeting. And if you're not familiar, it's National Speakers Association. And I
Mm-hmm.
went to a local chapter meeting, and one of the speakers there was so powerful. And he spoke to me after. He was like, "God is telling me to tell you that this is what you're destined to do." And I was just like, those kind of confirmations would happen. So I can't neglect along the way that I didn't learn some powerful lessons from confirmation.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing that I wanted to ask you about that, because you were like, when people would say this to you or give you these confirmations that initially you felt intimidated by the whole speaking thing. So what exactly? Because I know for me, what I was intimidated by, but what exactly for you were you intimidated by? What intimidated you about the industry?
A couple of things. I didn't know that I had a message that people wanted to hear. I also didn't know how to like even put together a speech so that I could speak for longer than 5 minutes. I knew that I had a voice and I could think clearly on my feet. I was the kind of person that friends would call in the middle of the night when things were going crazy or like when they didn't know what to say. I knew that part, but I didn't know how that turned into a business or how you could operate that in a business. And I was just like, I've got to just figure this out. Like, this can't be too hard, and I can't not figure it out. Because if someone else has done it, that means I can do it.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that piece about, do I really have something that everybody wants to hear, right? Because I think we tend to think, it's just my life. I'm sure there's nothing very interesting about it at all, or, not some interesting nuggets or wisdom that people can pull out of it. So I can definitely relate on that aspect of it. So now you're working. And like I said, you have these two events that happen. Okay. So the loss of a significant relationship that you thought was going somewhere. And then your dad becomes ill. So kind of take us through that.
Yeah. So I have an extremely close, small family. And so when I moved to Atlanta as an adult, I really like, I always loved my family, but I kind of was like, I'm a big girl, you know. I come home when I want to, and so when my dad got sick, I had to confront the fact that I needed to be with my family more. And so as I started going back and checking on him, I realized that it was way more serious than what I thought it was. And so in December of 2014, he actually had a surgery, and after the surgery he had a heart attack while he was in recovery. And so during that heart attack, something else happened and he wound up being in a coma for 10 days. And so during that 10 days I was just praying to God, believing for him, and at the same time I was still working at my job, which I really liked, but I was getting so much pressure because I was like, I needed to be present for my job, but I also needed to be present for my family. And I just felt such a huge conflict. as far as what I should be doing with my time. And so once he came out of the coma, because he did come out, he came out actually on my parents' anniversary. So it was very sweet. And it was such like a moment. And I was like, God, you did this. Like, yay, now everything's fine. I'll just go back to my life.
Mm.
And that was a pivotal mistake because I still needed to be present in that moment, because in that moment God was preparing me for what was next. So over the course of the next year, like the year of 2015, my dad got very sick. So he was constantly in the hospital, constantly, transitioning back and forth to different doctors and all that stuff. So he wound up having an amputation of his leg above the knee. He had one a few years earlier and it was below the knee, but then he had one above the knee and it got infected. And so when it got infected, he wound up having to go through additional surgeries, just all this back and forth in the hospital. And in that year, that's when I started my book in my business. Like I started I'm like, oh, I'm gonna pursue my purpose in the middle of all of this.
Mm.
And so I was like, what? Like, why am I doing this? But I just felt a call to push beyond my feelings and do a little bit more than what could have imagined. And so in December of 2015, we wound up losing him suddenly, and I wound up seeing him die in front of me.
Mm.
And that moment changed everything that I was doing, because I was like, my dad was 64 when he died, and I was 39, 38 at the time. And I was like, if all I have is 20 something years left, what am I doing? I'm a faith teacher, so I almost cursed. I had to remember. I was like, wait, I love Jesus. I was like, what am I doing with my life? I really thought I'm just kind of existing. There's nothing wrong with anything. Someone else would look at my life and say, oh, it's good. But for me, it wasn't enough.
Yeah, there's something, about death, and particularly of those that are close to us, that really just, I like to say, it kind of sobers you up. You kind of really do start thinking about, okay, what's going on in my life and what exactly am I doing? What am I trying to accomplish? But it's so interesting that, you looked at it as, you looked at it as, your dad dying at a certain age, and then you saying, "Oh my goodness, that's just only so many years from now," because your dad did die young. You know what I'm saying? 60 is not, 64 is not old at all. I guess the older you get, then old is not old, right?
Yeah.
But even still, it wasn't. So it's interesting that you, even in that moment, you looked at that and you're like, man, that's just 20 some years away, and that you had that shift in that moment.
Absolutely, I did. And I knew if I didn't make a choice to make a different life, that I was just going to exist. And that just didn't feel good to me. So I decided in that moment that I was never going to settle again. I wasn't going to be like, this is fine. I mean, in so many ways, I had settled too. There's subtle ways where you can settle. You can settle in just taking little things. I would just take anything from a restaurant if it would make someone else's life not inconvenient. I'm like, I'm paying for this. The fact that I'm here means that you have a job. Why am I just going to take what you offer? And so I found all these areas where I was just settling and not really maximizing my own potential. And that didn't feel good to me anymore.
Yeah, and I'm glad you gave an area of, settling. Like you said, it could be something very subtle, to things very major. Did you at that point feel too like you had settled in terms of your career?
Well, so it was weird because I really liked my job. I liked my staff. I liked what I did. It just, I remember one day, one of my best friends called me. She was like, what's going on? How's it going? I was like, girl, it's the same problem with a brand new day. And she was like, how much longer are you going to deal with the same problem with a brand new day? I was like,
Mm.
I mean, I'm not. And so it just woke me up. And again, I always honor my last employer because I thought I loved what I did for so long, but there was a point where I started to outgrow it, and I needed to recognize that sooner than later. And so when I started recognizing it, that's when I knew change had to occur. So my dad died in December, and then in March, my boss, who I really loved, decided to go work for another company, and I was just like, you know, I just don't feel like getting another boss. So I was like, I'm gonna hire myself. So I just quit my job for my birthday. I didn't really have a plan. I was like, I'm just gonna like chill for a little bit and figure it out. But I knew I was supposed to be speaking. I had written a book at that point. I knew that there was supposed to be more from my life, but I just didn't know how to articulate it or how to do it.
Okay, so listen. Most people, a lot of people, they're like, they're on their jobs and they're thinking, yeah, I need to go and do my own thing or whatever. And for some people, it can take months, it can take years, it can take even more years before they get up the courage to just, leave the job. So, but you sat there, it was December, and like 3 months later, you're like out of there with no plan. I mean,
Man.
what gave you, if you can pinpoint it or anything, what gave you the courage to just be like, you know what, I'm out of here. No plan,
Yeah.
no
Oh, you know
nothing.
what? I was wrong. So it was a year and a month, the 3 months later, because
Even
I quit in
still.
December of 2017. Well, I mean, I was just like, I got tired of seeing the same problems with brand new days attached to it. I was like, this is the same exact situation. Like 5 years from now, this is going to be the same exact problem. Like, I don't want to run into this anymore. And I had been through so many bosses, and I was like, I just don't want another one. Like, I don't want to get to know somebody, trust somebody, because then you gonna leave too. So I mean, like, I was like, I have to make a choice, and the choice I made was for me. I was reading a book at the time, and it was from Dan Miller, and it was about 90 days to your perfect job. And he was like, a lot of times we imagine our lives 10% better than what they were. And instead of really believing that we can have 100% better, he was like, you imagine 10% increase or 10% raise or 10. And I was like, I'm not even getting 10%. I'm getting like 3.5%. And that's the highest raise. So I need to just try. Like, what's the worst that can happen?
Right. So at this point now, would you say now you're going from the existing to living?
So I started. So when I went in March of 2017, I went to a conference, and that's where I met you.
Yeah.
And I joined a business mastermind. I had a business coach before, and she was an amazing person. I felt like I learned so much from her, but I knew I needed a little bit more intentional support. So that's when I joined the mastermind. So with that level of intensity and support, I was able to like really grow as a business leader. And I still feel like I am definitely still growing so much because it's only been 2 years and 5 months. So it's been 2 years and 5 months since I've worked for anybody. And honestly, Lex, I thought I was going to get a job in like 90 days. I really tried too, like for real. Like I went to an interview and a second interview and a third interview with one company. I already had worked for a different branch of the company for 5 years. And the person who was my boss is now like the state level boss,
Yeah.
like recommended me highly. They hired an intern over me. I was like, you
Whoa.
gonna take an intern over somebody with 5 years worth of experience in this particular company? I was just like, okay, God, what are you saying? Like, what are you saying? And I remember just sitting there like, okay, God, what is it that I really want? And what I desired was freedom, intentionality, impact. And I knew I couldn't get that by trying to choose a traditional path.
Yeah. And sometimes if we're not paying attention, we can kind of look at all of those closed doors, those jobs that you should have gotten. And we can look at that and we can totally miss if we're focused on that only. If you were focused on that only, you could have totally missed what it was that God was calling you to.
Yes, absolutely. I would have missed it if I wouldn't have pressed myself to just say, you know what? What's the worst that could happen? Like I literally looked at it, I was like, the worst that can happen is that I have to like go get a job in retail or like, work at a grocery store. Like that's the worst that can happen. I was like, but I have a master's, I have some money, and I reduced all my expenses and I moved home with my mom so that I could save all my money. And I was just like, so I'm taking the most calculated, safe risk at the very best time of my life. I don't have any kids, so I'm not affecting anyone else's journey in life. I mean, I might as well try. I was like, if I fail, I could just always go back. And so I just felt really confident that at least I deserved to try. And with trying, whatever happened was fine with me. But if I didn't try, that was a failure.
So in this transition now, you're working for yourself. You're your own boss, and you've been doing this now a little over 2 years or 2.5 years. And so, what have you learned about yourself in this process? And then speak to, because our topic is whose vision is it anyway. Begin to speak to a little bit of that.
So I learned a whole bunch. I did like everything wrong at first. One of the first things I did is that I had written a book, and I just wrote the book because I wanted to say I was an author. And so I wrote my book, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna develop a program. I'm gonna sell it to people. And you know who bought it?
Who
Nobody. Like, I couldn't give that sucker away. I'd be like, listen, I have a free gift for you today. And people would be like, oh, okay, thanks. You know what I'm saying? It was like the perfume lady at the store.
Yeah.
You see the perfume lady, you be like, I'm going the other way.
You're like, no, I don't want that.
Like, I don't want the perfume. Okay, don't look at me. I'm no eye contact.
Yes.
Right? So that was like my reality. I was just like, it's so like, I'm not going to do that. So I found myself trying to figure out how to make this work. And I made God a promise. I said, God, if you show me how to do this, if you show me how to make this successful, then I'll teach other people and I'll make sure that they get it. Like, I will work with them until they get it. Like, I won't stop. And he showed me how to do that. So the first thing I created was like this little like online program where I was going to help people with their dreams, goals, and visions. I was like, you can do it. You can change your life. And I was just like all those other people selling promises. Right? I was like, I promise you, if you just try. And what I realized was that wasn't my message. My message was transformation. I know that transformation takes time. And so I made a conscious decision to switch over about a year ago, actually right about a year ago today, actually yesterday, on my best friend's birthday. Beyonce, had to shout her out.
Oh, Lord.
I made a conscious decision.
Look, Danita, hold on. Even the producer's shaking his head. Wolf was like, Lord.
She's my virtual best friend. It was her birthday yesterday. She turned 38, so I had to shout her out. Congratulations, Beyonce, for almost 40 Club. Whoa. Okay. Anyway, get back to it. So I made a decision that I wanted to be the kind of person who could be in someone's life and there could be a market difference because I was there. Like, I didn't just want to be like any other coach and be like, yeah, I can tell you 7 steps to that. The 7 steps didn't work for me. What worked for me was being able to partner with the Holy Spirit within my business and see my business change because of him. And so I just gave up the fact that I was going to work with Christian people because I didn't want to. I didn't want to, Lex.
Now, why would you want to work with the Christian folk, Danita?
I didn't want to work with them because I was like, they're going to be judgmental. They're going to be talk about me when I have my tequila on Fridays. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be too much. I can't do it. I'm not interested. And one of my friends, Erica, she was like, okay, well, when you submit to God, then the Holy Spirit's just going to tell you everything to do. And I was like, Erica, I was like, don't tell me no more. Don't dream about me.
Don't dream about me.
Just stop talking.
Keep all your messages to yourself.
Yeah, shh, don't talk about it. And so I was just like, I got really frustrated because I started sounding like everybody else, and I knew I wasn't just like everybody else. So I was like, you know what, God, if you're gonna do it, then you've got to show me how, and I can't be broke. I was like, if you can't do those 2 things, I'm about to go back to what everybody else is doing because I know I can make money another way. But I was like, if you don't show me how, and if you don't keep me rich, I'm not interested.
So my question then is, what did he show you?
So what he showed me was that I was really called to, I really have always loved like goal setting and goal achieving. I love taking something from concept to reality. As a kid, I used to love like little things like baking. Like, I love the fact of taking flour and sugar and eggs and then being able to make a cake or being able to do something. So transformation was always super attractive to me. Mm-hmm. So taking different things, putting it together and transforming. So that was a consistent theme for me. And I wanted to be able to help entrepreneurs of faith transform their lives by actually taking action on the word of God. Like, not to think about it, not to pray about it, not to hope about it, but to do what they've been called to do. So my foundational scripture for how I run my business is Genesis chapter chapter 1, verse 28. And it said specifically in the Amplified version that we as leaders were called to dominate every single, to put subjugation. Subjugation means to have absolute mastery over. And I was like, if God sent me here to dominate, and in a verse a couple up says that I have the same spiritual personality as God. So my spiritual personality is the same as God. So all the extra, all the random jokes, like that's God showing up in the lives of my clients. So if I'm going to honor that, then I have to be myself, but then I also have to be able to translate that into action. So what it translated into my business is I just help people with accountability and strategy so they can do what they've been called to do.
Yeah, amazing. You know, because we've known each other and we have this relationship, I had the awesome pleasure of watching you go through that transformation, like, you know, taking on that Genesis 128, like really personalizing it. And you came out, I mean, dominating, dominating. And so that's been amazing to watch. And now you're taking that and you are teaching others, right? What it means, you know, to have vision and to dominate. And you're teaching them all about that. So tell me about that. What is your basis, or how did you even come up with your teachings for teaching people about, you know, how to your thing is reset your vision. So how do you even teach people about that?
So what happened was, I think maybe earlier this year, I was on a plane because I travel for work. I do leadership contract training. So that's another stream of income. And I was like, God, how did you achieve goals? Because obviously you was way more successful than what I have been in achieving goals. And so I just literally looked at the word of God and looked at systems. And so I saw a system I had never seen before. And specifically in Genesis chapter 1 in verse 1, it says, in the beginning, God made light. Of course, we've all heard that before. It doesn't even matter what your faith is. You've heard that before. Well, I looked at it from a systematic standpoint. And from a systematic standpoint, when he made light, the only goal he had that day was light. It didn't even matter about man or vegetation or animals. None of that was important. I saw how God took order to goal setting. So he did one thing, and his one thing was, I'm making light today. And so the light that he made, which is interesting because I don't even know if people have seen this. I'll talk about Genesis chapter 4, verse 14 in just a second. But he made light and then he blessed it. So he said it was good, which is different than what I saw most people do. They do something great in their life and they're like, oh, I could have been better. I should have did this. I should have did that. No, he said it was good. And then he sustained it. That means he saw it to completion. And so when I saw that, I was like, that's what I was doing wrong. I'm making a goal. And the goal is just based on anything I'm interested in. Maybe today I want pizza and I'm going to make a pizza from scratch. And then maybe tomorrow I want to be a health nut and I want to eat only chia seeds. I don't know. So, I'm all over the place. I don't have no big vision, right? I didn't see a big vision for my life. And then I'm like, instead of applying the principles of structure and strategy and consistency, I'm beating myself up because I'm like, oh, I could have did this better and I could have did that better, blah, blah, blah. And instead of even seeing the good in what I was producing, I was allowing myself to get caught up into the world standard of perfection. And that was an issue that I had for so long. And I was just ready to be free of that.
Oh my goodness. Like that whole, I don't know, people listening right now, I don't even know if you all understand like what she just said, all from just like Genesis 1:1, right? Like when I think about, how we typically set goals, because it's not the way I do it anymore, but how we typically set goals, like some of us have like 5, 6, 7, 8 goals, or, or a to-do list of 25 things you want to get done for the day. And, you're multitasking and all this kind of stuff. And when you look at Genesis 1:1, like you said, he had one goal. I'm going to make light today. I ain't going to be over here making light and trying to make animals all at the same time and trying to, he said, oh, I'm making light today. That's light. That's it. That is so awesome. And then the other point that I want to reiterate that people make sure that they understand was when you said that, he said it was good, because you're right. Yes, a lot of times, we do things, we create things, we whatever, and then we will pick at it. We will just find, whatever's wrong with it, whatever, instead of, seeing, giving ourselves some credit. So I think
Yeah.
that those are two huge points.
Huge points.
Huge points.
It makes such a huge difference because you can take the pressure off of yourself of now I have to be perfect and I need to do it right and I got to be better and blah, blah, blah. Nope. I made light today. And this is what I saw was so cool because I asked God, I said, God, you know what? Normally when you make anything, it's in seed form, right? It's in the form of a seed. It grows. It's bigger. I was like, so when I looked, and then if you look in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 14, it said in verse 14 is that's where he made sun, moon, and stars. So I was like, the type of light that you made wasn't even what we see of, like, we're not even thinking about it right now, like how it was. It was just light. He didn't have to make sun, moon, and stars all at once. He made them later. So it was an appointed season for each and every assignment. And so I saw, especially entrepreneurs of faith, really facing spiritual attacks because God would speak to them. And then all of a sudden they would get 75 other great ideas that they need to implement. And then they get confused. I'm like, that's a spiritual attack. If God told you to do something, that's all you need to focus on. I was like, once you are done with it and you've sustained it, that's when you can acknowledge what's next. But you can get so distracted by great ideas.
So true, which a lot of us as entrepreneurs, we do because, we've got a lot of ideas. And so a lot of us even have a hard time just getting started sometimes because all the ideas keep popping and we're trying to figure out, which ones to go with or we are moving, but like I said, we're trying to attack too many of them. We're trying to do 5 things all at once, open 6 businesses all at once. So this is an amazing lesson that we can learn from Genesis 1 about vision and goal setting and all of that. So this is what you do. You teach people, you tell us who you teach because I know you teach specific people, and tell us what you got coming up.
Okay. So I really specialize in teaching entrepreneurs of faith how to apply realistic principles and
them Christian folk.
Yes, the Lord called me to work with his people. He called me out strong too. I was just like, that I'm enjoying it, and I've actually seen more profit in my business by being specific and saying I just help these people.
Yeah.
And it just made it easier. It's less pressure. I could be myself if I say, listen, hold on a second, let me pray for you real quick because what you're doing too much right now. And I can still, have fun and do all the things that are me because God loves who I am, like how I am. But I could still be the strategic, person that's going to help push people into excellence too, because I hate, and I can use this word just that strong, I hate when people have all this faith and all this vision, but they have no action. That drives me bananas. And I wanted to help with the action portion. Like, how do you go from I'm thinking about it to here it is? Like, here is my landing page. Here is my email list. Here is, my website. Like, get it out your head and get it onto real life so that we can help other people to magnify what has been called to magnify. And not all my clients serve Christian people. I'm like, go serve the people who you need to pay. I was like, just listen to me because I'm going to help you with the spiritual practical part, but just go serve whoever you're supposed to serve.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yes. Yeah, that is, that's amazing. And as you were talking, I was just, oh my goodness. Anyway, that Genesis 1, boy, I tell you, that's huge. We could spend a whole nother hour probably just digesting everything in there for us.
Yes. I have a 3-hour teaching just about Genesis chapter 1, like just about how do you apply it? How do you do it? Like, how do you make it realistic? Then how do you translate that into tangible results for your life? Like, that's all I want people to see. I want them to say, I prayed about it. I took strategic action and now I have it. Like, that's what I want. I don't want people to stop at the prayer because faith without works is dead faith.
Absolutely.
So speaking of dead faith, you asked me what I have coming up next.
Yes.
Okay, great. And then no, you have to go because just like every other mommy entrepreneur, you got stuff to do.
It's all good. It's all good.
So Actually, coming up, I have an event called Reset Your Vision, and it's designed to help entrepreneurs of faith get more focused on their goals and be intentional for the last 90 days of the year. So it's designed to create really clear goals, really clear action plans, and actually put profit plans in place so that you can see the profit that you're desiring to have in the last 90 days. I know that God can do that for his people. It's just a matter of getting clear, intentional, and focused. So if you're in the Atlanta area on September 21st, I want you there. Like, I have people coming in from out of state, so it don't matter if you're from Atlanta. You can come in. Tickets are only $35, and they're at resetyourvision.eventbrite.com, or you can just go to my site, DanitaScott.com, because the link is there as well.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I know that whomever is going to be in attendance, they are going to be completely blessed. And I know not only are they going to be blessed, but I know just because I have witnessed you work, I know that everyone there in attendance, if they do exactly what you teach them to do, that they're going to realize, the goals and, the things that they want, and they're going to move from just simply existing, because a lot of us as entrepreneurs can do that. We can just simply, exist. But we want to move from existing to living. And I know that's exactly what's going to happen when people come to your event. So one more time, tell everybody where they can get their tickets from when the event is.
So it's going to be on September 21st in Atlanta, Georgia. If you're familiar with Atlanta, it is next to Lenox Mall, so super easy to get to. There's a hotel called the JW Marriott. It's literally on the same parking lot as Lenox Mall, and it's going to be from 9 to 12:30. I'm having my super friend Dee Edwards come out to teach the profit portion of the business. And when you're ready to get your tickets, because I know you are, because this one will sell out, it's resetyourvision.eventbrite.com.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Well, it has simply been amazing just to talk with you today and to hear your story. I've heard your story before. I'm always amazed, but I always learn something a little bit new every time I hear your story. Thank you for sharing that with us today. Thank you for sharing what God has shared with you and put on your heart. Thank you for being obedient to the call on your life, so that we can, reset our vision, so that we can go from existing to living. And so I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. You've been listening to Radio Indy. And we thank you for tuning in. We want you to catch us next Thursday. We're here every Thursday at our new time, 4:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we'll have another one of our co-hosts that we'll be featuring. So once again, thank you for listening. We want to give a shout out to our producer, Marcus, today, who got us straight. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And to the lovely Kimberly Kent, as always. You guys have a blessed rest of your Thursday and week. See ya.